Welcome back to another edition of Tea and Toys. Now, I've been umming whether to do a thoughts video on the War for Cybertron Kingdom series and the War for Cybertron trilogy in general. And I just have to say that, although I've watched every episode, and I didn't completely hate it, I didn't love it. I honestly did not love the trilogy. I think it'd be easy maybe for me to go through character by character, think of what they did and what they didn't do throughout the series, and complete missed opportunities when it comes to certain characters, and then how some characters have been portrayed. And this series, for instance, is a first for some characters. It's a first for the screen, for animation. Characters like Cog and Spinister, to name but a few, and maybe some real depictions of other characters. Like, I don't know, no, Double D, well, Double Cloud is kind of in the Master Force series. I'm just sort of spouring out thoughts in my head, and I think I said on my Earthrise video how much I really dislike the portrayal of Optimus Prime and Megatron in recent mythos. This Optimus Prime, I see nothing but weakness. Nothing but weakness. There's nothing courageous about his leadership in the series at all. He keeps looking towards others for him, and it's not the Prime of old. I know sometimes people go, "Orangey, you wanna?" Yeah, partially, because it was the best Prime. It was the best Prime. And even if you look at the original cartoon, you look at the original comic books, by far the best Optimus Prime and the best Megatron. Now, one thing I particularly hate with an absolute passion, is this ridiculous disgruntled miner storyline that Hasbro seemed to be running with Megatron. And I know it started with IDW. Simon Furman, why did he do this? With the Decepticons being some weird lower class citizen that sort of uprise through the tyrannical Autobot leadership, which for me is completely backwards. Go back to your source material, Hasbro, and see what worked back then. The Autobots were the working class. They were the maintenance robots. And the Decepticons were the military. The guns, the tanks, the helicopters, the fighter jets. They are meant to be a militaristic dictatorship, if they're in charge, if they're ruling. But they don't do this. They do this like, woe is me, Megatron. Oh, let's have everybody feel sorry for Megatron and think the Autobots are baddies for making him so downtrodden. No! It really grinds my gears that they'd run with it. And you see, I'm getting a bit passionate about it. I just think it is not Megatron. Reading the original bio on him, I had it on the Earthrise video. He's meant to be a merciless leader for the evil Decepticons. The original tagline, heroic Autobots, evil Decepticons. They're baddies. Some people say, oh, it's a bit too black and white, there's no background characterization there, blah 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 blah. It's the wrong background for Megatron. It is the wrong background. 100%. I want strength from my faction leaders. 100%. Now let's go through the list. Bumblebee. Siege didn't like Bumblebee. Doesn't transform throughout the entire trilogy. But he becomes more likeable in Earthrise and in Kingdom. Doesn't do much in Kingdom. Wheeljack. I actually quite like Wheeljack. Good representation of Wheeljack. I didn't mind what they did with him there. Although he should definitely have been on par with Rhinox. Not sure why Rhinox had to be given this weird genius mantle. No, he's not a genius, he's just Rhinox. And Wheeljack's just Wheeljack. They're engineers, they're clever, they're not geniuses. I don't see why they just couldn't bounce off each other, and Wheeljack seemed to be made out to be some kind of quack in Kingdom for some reason. Don't know why they did that. Don't know why they had to do that. RC, I didn't mind RC. I quite liked what they did with her. She doesn't do much. She's just there being RC. Cog, again, the first time we get to see Cog on the screen doing anything of any sort, and then he's given some weird hero's death, which was completely odd, if memory serves me, from Earthrise. And yeah, I didn't like that. And then they give him a statue at the end of Kingdom. Why? He didn't do anything particularly statue-worthy, in my opinion. Or maybe it was one of the many random Cog clones. Why they went down that route with 101 different Cog clones here and there, and then they did 101 different sideswipe clones without trying to push forward for deep cover and clamp down and any other, or even the actual clone sideswipe. Would have been interesting to see what they would have done there. They did a lot in this series, but they also didn't do a lot of anything. Prowl, wasted. Ironhide, wasted. Sideswipe, in Kingdom, absolutely pointless. The Red One. Everybody else had a name. He was referred to as the Red One. Jog on. Jog on. Hound, I can't remember him doing much either. He had a funny line where the Maxim will say, "Hey, maximize!" And he said, does that mean transform? I like that line. It's a good line. Alita 1. Now, so this is where the weakness comes in with Optimus Prime. And she was elevated above him. She was this very capable, very good general of sorts. Completely weak. The weakness of Ultra Magnus, the weakness of Prowl. You know, they're all meant to be the same rank, but she was stood above, head above the others. And Optimus Prime. Now, ordinarily that wouldn't bother me had the other characters been written better. There's nothing wrong with her being a strong female character. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you weaken your male lead, Optimus Prime, to elevate one of your female leads, it's noticeable. It really is noticeable. Jetfire. Now, I don't know why they go down the baddie route. He was a baddie for like 15 seconds in the original series. And switched sides pretty easily. I just think it's one of those things. Oh yeah, we tipped our hats towards the original series. I just thought it was misguided. Like, Starscream for me needs to be that second in command, that leader of the air defense guys, and maybe having poor Jetfire being a big dude, but it's him against this entire Seeker fleet. Would have been more interesting for me. Like, him being like, and then cutting off, he's being nasty. It just didn't work. And why would you accept the murderer of many Autobots onto your team? I don't get that. Too many Decepticons were shown as being weak throughout this trilogy. Oh, you know, was it Skytread that allowed Chromia to live just for her to shoot his head off? Why did you shoot his head off? He let you live earlier and you just blow his head off. That was completely... Again, didn't like that. Didn't like it. It made no sense. Made no sense. Obviously, she had to survive. Obviously. And obviously, then Riddler. Yeah, Riddler wasn't too bad. He seemed like he was like a much younger version than what we've been used to from other iterations of the character. G1 version, not the Armada version, which is a completely separate character for me. Chromia, again, yeah, I've already covered that one. Now, we're getting into the Kingdom characters. Now, I have discussed this with other fans. When it comes to Beast Wars characters in Kingdom, I took it as these aren't the same characterizations we're going to get. They had a different future to grow up from, to be born from, even though the Allspark was gone. But that timey-wimey stuff, we'll ignore that for a minute. So they were never going to be the same personalities because they lived completely different lives in this universe compared to a version of the Generation 1 universe. Whether you take it from the comic or the cartoon, it's actually more linked to the cartoon in my opinion. Others will disagree. Optimus Primal, yeah. If I'm honest, I missed Gary Chalk's voice. And I know the voice acting thing, it's a thing. And it's hard to accept something when it changes. So I'm trying to not make that a thing when talking about the Beast Wars characters this time round. It is hard to have that adjustment when I've rewatched Beast Wars, well, I don't know, 6 or 7 times from beginning to end. And to not have Gary Chalk's Optimus Primal, It was a struggle. It was a struggle. But character-wise, it didn't feel like him. Didn't feel like him. Really didn't. Airazor, again, one of the most underused characters in the original show. Massive, massive loss when they wrote her out. Hated it when they wrote her out. I actually don't like character deaths because of it. Although technically she doesn't die until they become Tigerhawk, but again, that's another thing I didn't like either. So she was written out in place of Black Arachnia to take over the female Maxim role. Again, hate Black Arachnia as a good guy. She's a bad guy. She's better as a bad guy. But it's nice to see Airazor. Actually, really liked the characterization. To see more of that character, it was good. I really embraced this version of Airazor. Rhinox, again, he's made out to be some kind of genius. Doesn't really do much. Rat Trap doesn't really do much. Cheetor doesn't really do much. Tigertron just wasn't right. Just wasn't right. But again, going back to they're not the same character. Although they are the same character, if you know what I mean. Just like they live different lives, which is why he's a bit more aggressive. But I liked that placid characterization from the original Cybertron, and a lot of the character that we knew and loved is lost with this new timeline and accepting that they ain't the same. But they probably should have been for it to work. And then we go down Ultra Magnus. Again, weakness, weak, rubbish portrayal of Ultra Magnus. Meant to be one of the most powerful Autobot warriors from the original comic he was anyway. None of that. We got none of that. The Ark, yeah, you know what? Out of all three Titans from the trilogy, yeah, the Ark, yeah, probably the most relevant in the entire series. He's in it for like 15 seconds. But comparing it to Scorponok and Omega Supreme, yeah, I don't know, his portrayal seemed better. Again, but ultimately, a big nothing. Oh, I can't outshoot the Nemesis, so I'm going to punch it. Great. Loved it. Scarlink's pointless. Absolutely pointless. What was that storyline? What a crock. Moonracer, again, she was just there to be killed. Cliffjumper, I can't even remember what Cliffjumper did now. Steeljaw, no idea. Again, the random comms and security officers. You've got characters, you've got toys that you could have used in the series. They didn't need to go down the whole generic shite with them, if I'm honest. Sorry, language. This series just kind of bothered me a little bit. I know you should embrace new things, accept change, but sometimes change isn't always good. They talk about Transformers and they're always changing. Megatron, again, we covered it. Hated him. Hated this Megatron. Hated it. Starscream should have been second in command from the get-go. But he had a good arc. He did have a good story arc, so I can't take that away from Starscream. Soundwave, yeah, Soundwave was Soundwave. Nothing was lost with Soundwave. Would have been nice to see him transform into his flying bed, but he didn't. Now, Ravage and Laserbeak. I loved the chase scene with Laserbeak. Laserbeak was used very well in the series. I actually quite like the way it was used. Very, very G1 Laserbeak. Now, Ravage, what I would have liked with Ravage is when all like the time shifting or whatever it is that they all spark or whatever's happening, it's when he's fighting Cheetor and Tigertron. What should have happened at that point when he hits one of the time displaced rocks or whatever's changing, whatever magical shizzle dizzle was happening at that point? Ravage should have been instantly reformatted into his Beast Wars mold to get more of that Beast Wars Ravage. And that's one thing. When I get the Ravage toy, I'm going to go over how much I love the fact that Ravage was in the original Beast Wars. But what a waste of a character. What an utter waste of a character. So it would have been nice to see that version of Ravage get created in this universe. But alas, we didn't get that. We didn't get it. Barricade, yep, liked him. I wanted to see more of him. Wanted to see more of him and Spinister and Skytread as a little unit. But we didn't get that. Astro Train, complete waste of time. 1 minute he's a giant in Siege, and then he does nothing in Earthrise and gets beaten up by Mirage, which is literally half his size. Completely unbelievable victory by Mirage there. Sorry. Hotlink, I think a bit of a nothing burger. Anybody that wasn't Starscream Seeker wise, bit of a nothing. Shockwave, Do I like the mad scientist Shockwave? I don't think I do. I like the cold, calculating Shockwave for me. Scrapface, again, another Decepticon, which turns good guy. So out of all the Netflix releases, there was like 2 baddies. And Scrapface is one of them. And he just turns into an Autobot, essentially, in his first appearance. And I'm taking him and Shambles. Obviously, Shambles is the limping one. What would have been nice is if Scrapface, Shambles, and whoever else were a unit of 3, similar to Reflector, and have Refractor as the head honcho of that mould. And so I'm going all the way down to Reflector now. It's actually one of my favourite characters. Don't know why, I just seem to love the design, but they never seem to do him right, if they ever do him at all. What I would have preferred is if Reflector had like clone copies of himself, similar to Multiple Man in the X-Men, but more like holograms or reflections, let's say, of himself, and he basically is the army builder for Megatron, unless otherwise stated. So you can have Scrapface and Shambles as one of Shockwave's bad clone replicas of Reflector, trying to replicate his special ability and failing. So you get Scrapface a bit beaten up, Shambles who's a bit he can't walk properly type thing. Just something similar to what they did with Sound Blaster with the other Reflector guys. But alas, we didn't get that. We just got a load of nothing characters that we probably won't ever see again. Again, we'll look at the other Storm characters. Background fodder. Then we move on to Beast Wars Megatron. Now, obviously, a lot of people despise and hate the new voice. I didn't like it either. I really didn't like it either. But the one thing that bothered me more about the Beast Wars Megatron is he was a sycophant. He was Starscream. That type of Starscream, but with a T-Rex body. Megatron, my lord! No! Maybe when Beast Wars Megatron, first sees G1 Megatron, maybe could have been a bit like, oh my god, I name myself after this guy, I want to live through his namesake. But the Beast Wars Megatron needed his own agenda. He needed to be Beast Wars Megatron. Maybe he should have lost faith in somebody that he looked up to. Going, God, I looked up to this guy and he's actually not the kind of leader I thought he was. Let's switch gears a little bit and make this a Predacon victory, and I'll take on any leftover Decepticons. He needed his own edge. Absolutely needed his own edge. We go to Dinobot. Again, Dinobot, most pointless death. Absolutely pointless. So trying to replicate something with a character that we knew for 30 plus episodes from the original series, a character we loved. He went back and forth. He went through the whole trials and tribulations of, is he good guy, is he baddie, is he letting down his honour by switching sides. We went through the works with Dinobot. I think we could have had something similar with this Dinobot had we known him longer. But personally, I think it would have been nice if we got an out-and-out villain Dinobot. We didn't need to repeat a storyline we've already seen. We needed an out-and-out villain Dinobot, and if you've seen the ending with obviously Nemesis and Galvatron, it would have been nice if Dinobot was grabbed by Unicron, creating his card version. Was it Dominus Dinobotus or something? That would have been something interesting to go, right. Unicron picks it and goes, you will be my next Herald. That would have been a better ending for this Dinobot. And a baddie that was out and out villainous. But we didn't get it. Black Arachnia was very Black Arachnia. I quite like what they did with her. She didn't switch sides, thank God for that. But one thing, why did she have to be a lesbian? There was a lesbian reference towards RC, and then she had to kiss Air Razor. Not sure why that was. Is it the end of the world? No, it's not, but just a bit odd why they went down that angle, especially when they did some weird Silverbolt type thing at one point. Predacon Scorponok, absolutely pointless. What was the point in having him in the series? 1 minute he's not a multiples, the next minute he is a multiples. It's like, you've got Reflector for that, you've got Seekers for doing that position. Scorponok needs to be something more. Again, another character like Air Razor from the original show. Scorponok doesn't do much, so it would have been nice to get to know this Scorponok. But he doesn't even talk really. I think he just gruffs and grumbles, and then he becomes like cannon fodder. Many of him. Absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Impactor, yeah. Again, he switched sides. Boring. Skull Up dies off early. Other Seekers yawn. I get a cover Nemesis Galvatron bits separately. The Mercenaries, again, completely pointless faction. Absolutely pointless faction. Bugbite is a GoBot. Do you know what? Again, it's a bugbear with me. A bugbear with Bugbite. I hate it when they try incorporating GoBots into the Transformers. It really grinds my gears. Really don't like it. Massive GoBot fan. When people say, oh, here's the GoBot. No, he's not. This is the Transformer Bugbite. This has a stolen name. And one day I would love it if Hasbro did not have the GoBots whatsoever. Separate it, I'll buy it. Thrust Ramjet Dirge, yeah, boring. Do nothing characters. Double Dealer, do nothing character. Sound Blaster, interesting. Doesn't do anything. Move on. If you name Scorponok and you're in this trilogy, you are a pointless character. Do you want Scorponok? Absolutely pointless. What do you do other than be the beast to fight for a fighting scene? Absolutely pointless. Omega Supreme, again, like with Sound Blaster, a great little backstory setup type thing where the Omega Sentinels are standing to the side of this war for some reason. You're just letting the planet get destroyed around you just to stand there and do absolute F all. Omega Supreme, it saved the day at the end of Siege. Does nothing. Does nothing after that, disappears. Forgotten, doesn't even get mentioned. Alphatron, again, a bit weird what they did with him there, but that's fine. The Quintesson, complete and utter shite. Within 15 seconds, they chopped off his other foreheads and became a Unison. I hated what they did with the Quintessons, and I love them as a baddie. I absolutely love the Quintessons as a baddie. Completely ruined in this series. So overall, there were things I liked. Like Hellraiser. I liked Hellraiser. And I liked some things that we were teased, but we didn't get the execution that I was looking for. I know it's not made for me, it's made for a whole host of millions of people, but I just didn't get what I wanted from this show. But one thing that I did really like, and it needed to have been a plot point from Siege, was this backstory with Unicron, Galvatron, and Nemesis Prime. And yes, they could have incorporated Cyclonus, who was a toy in Kingdom. Hell yeah, sticking Scourge in there as well. And as you're doing Beast Wars stuff, and if you like the Tarantulas Unicron connection, I personally hate it. I don't think it works. A lot of people go, oh no, here's a Herald of Unicron, blah 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 blah. I hate it personally. I hate it. Would be better as a Quintesson agent, but I'll do that in another video. I'll do it in another video, why I think that would work better. But they could have done that. Added in Tarantulas, added in the Tripredicus Council, with working in conjunction with Nemesis, with Galvatron. It was just a story plot point that I wanted to see them explore more. I wanted to see more of how Optimus Prime would be coerced into switching sides and becoming Nemesis, becoming this version of Nemesis Prime. Now, Nemesis Prime is a weird character in general. There are so many different versions of backstories for a Nemesis Prime, the Nemesis Primes. But this one is clearly Optimus Prime is coerced into becoming an agent of Unicron, like Megatron is originally to become Galvatron. Get powered up, take over the universe that way. You're always enslaved by your big boss. So this is a part of the story arc that I really wanted them to explore. When I saw the ending, when they were introduced, there were a few tidbits here and there. To have these two as the ultimate big bad, covering the entire thing, maybe working in the background, pitting Optimus Prime and Megatron against each other to get so these two can still exist type thing. They needed to be more of an angle. They needed to be there from the get-go. And I think it would have made a much darker story, a much more interesting story, instead of being like, Nemesis Prime in particular is literally a second in Earthrise. 0 in Siege. Galvatron gets an episode in Earthrise, and Unicron gets a quick little line. And then we're given all this good stuff in Kingdom, but it's just rushed. Ultimately, it's just rushed, and we get to the end, and and so many things could have been there. They just weren't. I know maybe it's me. I was looking for something different. There we go. It's just one of those things, and I have to live with it. Wait until we get the next Transformers movie, cartoon. Well, what did you think of War for Cybertron trilogy? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What parts did you like? What parts didn't you like? Put it in the comments below, and I'll see you guys and girls in the next video.